Welcome to this very, very special edition of the Monsters of Geek Spoilercast, and we are about to just destroy Endgame and spoil it all for you. I'll get all up in there and spoil it for you. This is Aaron. It's been a while since you've heard all of our voices. We've been moving houses and having kids and all that good stuff, and so it's been pretty crazy. Plus all of our work lives. So you'll hear our voices ever so often, but this is one definitely we wanted to get together and record. Me and Andrew, which will be on just a second. He got a new computer, so he's working with the microphone a little bit. Um, as soon as our no joke, Daniel, it was as soon as we finished that night. The last, we just heard the clanging at the end, which didn't mean anything, but just a kind of a salute to one of the spoilers we'll talk about definitely. And you had texted me and it was like, when we gonna do a spoiler cast? Like it was right at the last part is perfect. So I told Andrew, I was like, we want to do this soon. So me and Joe went to the matinee. Me and Jared will record something. He's trying to find some time to go see it in the theater. So me and him will get together and record a little bit for that. But man, what an ending to 10 years for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's pretty incredible. How long I was on Twitter just to share a little bit. And one of the guys that worked for I don't know if he worked for Marvel Studios or Marvel, the publishing branch, but he took his nephew when he was 7 to the first Avengers movie, and he wrote him a tweet or he wrote him a text telling him how much it like changed his life and how much this is our Star Wars and probably even surpassed
Yeah.
what Star Wars was to that generation. And he said, the Avengers, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been my entire life technically since I could remember
hmm
watching movies. So I mean, it's pretty incredible how long that they've done this. And Daniel, to be 100% honest, it just doesn't seem like 10 years to me.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, I can remember when Iron Man came out.
Mhm.
I mean, I think I was in college, I guess, and that's been about 10 years ago. So, I mean, it's unbelievable that they've done it this long and they've been this successful. And to me, that really says something when someone says this is our Star Wars. Because I guess it is. I never really
It
thought
is.
about it, but it is. You're exactly right.
Joe, man, what you 10 years, man? Like, does it feel like 10 years of the MCU to you?
No, it does not. No.
It just seems like it's just I don't know, man. Like I was sitting there and you kind of forget it's been 10 years because it just seems like the Marvel universe has always been. It's just like every year there's a new Marvel movie, and you just kind of count down the days. You don't really think about how many years that you've waited for these movies to come out, and it's also in terms of how they release movies, all the structure that they've put out. I mean, everything that they've used to build this universe. I mean, it's been incredible. Definitely an incredible 10 year a ride for these guys. I mean, we're just fans watching. I could just imagine what all the actors and the producers and the directors and everything, stunt guys, everything that's involved in this. I'm sure it feels like to them 10 years at least some days putting together these movies. But man, it's been an incredible ride. Andrew, can you hear us now?
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
cool. Yep.
All right.
We was just talking about how it doesn't feel like 10 years of the Marvel universe, and how some, especially if you were 6 or 7, you've always had the Marvel universe to kind of in terms of the movie cinematic portion of it. Does it feel like 10 years to you? Because so far it hasn't felt like 10 years to us.
No, it's pretty crazy. I really have been kind of trying to think back to a time where we didn't have them at this point. Because the MCU as an entire universe has existed for that long. But I even go back thinking back to like the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, and just like superhero movies have never not been a part of my life. Which is how much I know for you guys. You've been more in the comics and stuff, but really the for me the MCU and then just superhero movies in general have been my outlet for these characters. I don't know the comics and stuff, so it's been pretty fun to kind of because what the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was 2002. So
2001 or 2002 one, I can't
one,
remember.
two, whatever. Well, I was 13, 14 years old. So I've really kind of grown up with them into adulthood anyway. It's been a blast.
Yeah, just I mean, if you think about what Marvel's had to do I mean, they started out. I read a story the other day that actually Sony had a chance to buy the whole rights to the whole Marvel catalog years ago for like 25 million. It's right when Marvel started coming out of bankruptcy.
Yeah,
And,
Marvel was in trouble. I've
yeah,
heard
Marvel's
that
a
story.
lot of trouble. Yeah. We're kind of lucky. We still have Marvel comics to at least to this extent. And he said that he declined and said he just wanted Spider-Man, and nobody gave a crap about any of the other ones. It's crazy to how Marvel had to go kind of collect their own their own stuff back. It's like they lost their toys and had to go find them again. And it's pretty incredible. Not only the getting these movies on screen, but being able to say, hey, we need to get Spider-Man back. What are we going to do? Like, well, we need to do a Black Panther movie. Will people go see a Black Panther movie? Well, apparently they do. And it got to the point where if you just stamped the MCU, if you just put a big MCU stamp on it, it was gonna go. Like if you would have told me that Ant-Man would not only be a good movie, but also one that grossed pretty good. I mean, I'm not as big as like a Spider-Man or a Black Panther, but they grossed pretty good money. Definitely made Disney money. I'd have told you he was nuts that Ant-Man would ever get a movie. So it's been pretty incredible what they've had to do to kind of collect and once they was bought up by Disney, I think it was a foregone conclusion that they was going to get all their stuff back.
And I think it's worth noting too that they're putting out quality. They put out quality movies for this entire run. I mean, obviously not every movie was top tier, and not every movie, some were better than others. But every movie is enjoyable. I would say, and every movie is a fun movie to watch. But I was just thinking, you were talking about how, and we've talked a lot about how everything started with Iron Man. How that was the first MCU movie. But to me, really everything really started really kicked off the first Avengers to me. Because that was the first time they put all these characters on screen, and they put them all together, and it worked. Like it's like, wow, this actually worked. Before then, I would say that we didn't know that big of a cast with all these personalities, with all these superheroes, could even be a good movie, and they nailed it. And I think that's what really cemented, to that, where we are today. Not just the first Iron Man movie, but really the first Avengers.
I don't think I went back and watched any of the Iron Man movies. I know I didn't. I think the first one I went and saw in theaters was Thor because I was super stoked to get a Thor movie. I went back and watched Iron Man, I think, after Avengers. I don't think I even watched the Iron Man till after, or right up till Avengers or whatever it was. Because to be quite honest, like, Marvel was kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel a little bit in terms of the characters they had left. And I've told John a lot that I didn't think when Iron Man came, I was like, I don't know if this is going to be any good. And I remember I read somewhere that one guy was like, what he heard was when not only the Marvels run out of characters, they was like, what's the coolest looking character we could put in a movie? And Iron Man definitely checked the box. Like, what can be visually pretty stunning to go on screen, where if the story isn't great, this is our first time really kind of doing this, then we can put at least a cool looking hero out there. And Iron Man was it. And I think Iron Man still to this day is one of the coolest looking characters in at least in action movies history. I just think the stuff that they do with his armor and stuff is pretty incredible. But yeah, it's just amazing to think that it started out with Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, and then next thing you know, we've got all the Avengers on screen together fighting an invasion. It's incredible to think about.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the most important decisions in the whole MCU ended up being casting RDJ as Tony Stark. Because even in, like Tonight Show interviews and things like that, or not Tonight Show, but late nighttime talk show, whatever they're called, he's almost still kind of that character a little bit. Like,
a little bit.
I don't know, if they miss that casting choice, I don't know if that movie works. I don't know if the whole MCU works or if it works as well. Like,
or if Robert Downey Jr. would even have a career. I mean, think about where his career was at.
I mean,
he was a drug addict. He was out of movies.
Yeah.
Like he was. I mean, his life was in terrible straits.
Absolutely, they've helped each other a lot.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
But I just don't even know if it all works the same if he's not there to kind of embody Tony Stark, who's also obviously very important to the Avengers initiative, even within the comics, right? I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
about
very
that.
much so.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking from a place of ignorance, let me tell you what I know. but he just nailed it. I mean, he's just nailed it. My wife is a big fan of his for obvious reasons, and I don't know if you pull in people like her who would very much not be otherwise interested in these movies. Maybe they're still successful. Maybe they're probably still good, but I don't think they're the $1.2 billion in one weekend movie franchise that it's become if you don't get him and he's not as good as he is.
I think casting as a whole,
for sure.
I think yeah. I mean, there's many things that they could have done differently, but they went. I mean, just think if they would have wanted just all big names and they went out and got like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and all these other people to play all these characters, and then I don't think it would have worked as good.
Well, let me ask you this before we kind of move into the movie itself. Like, was there one casting when they casted you was like, I don't know about that, and it kind of surprised you?
Captain America.
That was mine. Yeah, I owe Chris Evans a big apology.
Yeah. Well, just wasn't that. I thought he would do an okay job, but it was just weird to see him go from Flame On to, Captain America.
Well, it that was weird, and also he had not really played a part like that up to that point.
Yeah.
Like most of his parts were more comedic and stuff like that, a little bit more in that vein. And somebody had mentioned Matt Damon to me one time, or I'd read in a publication about Matt Damon. I was like, man, he'd be a really good Captain America, and I still believe Matt Damon would be a good Captain America. But Chris Evans ended up being
Matt Damon can do whatever he wants.
That's it, right? And so, but I the more Chris Evans, I didn't watch the first Captain America movie. I lost interest really quickly. I just didn't think it was very. I'm gonna say it went very, very well. It just didn't hold my attention. But when he walked into that Avengers room, and just you got to have a presence when you walk in as Captain America. And as soon as he walked in there, I thought, well, he's got it. Like Matt Damon, who? Like Matt Damon, who? Like I guess this is definitely Steve Rogers, and he just got better and better and better. I'm sure that we'll talk about a little bit later, but he just got better and better and better as they kind of went along.
Matt Damon as Captain America and Ben Affleck as Bucky.
That would have been great. And then Affleck leaves the next movie, right?
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about Andrew. Did you have anybody that you felt was casted?
So I can't really answer that question well because I didn't follow the casting that closely for most of this, or maybe even any of it. So I really couldn't say. I was trying to think of something or anybody, and Chris Pratt as Star-Lord I thought was a slam dunk. Like that was a great choice.
Yeah. When they first cast
you
him,
didn't know if he could be a superhero, like if he could be cool, but Star-Lord's character is so kind of. Well, you've seen these movies, you know how Star-Lord is. Yeah, he's goofy.
Yeah.
It worked perfectly. So nothing comes to mind off the top of my head.
Daniel, what about you?
I'd say Mark Ruffalo was my biggest kind of question mark compared to everyone else. I thought everyone else fit really well, but I thought he kind of came out of nowhere, but he progressively got better as they made Bruce Banner's character gave Bruce Banner more of a personality and took, you know what I mean? I mean, it started out, he was just Hulk. And so Hulk is this big, massive creature. And of course, Hulk can be very funny and have his moments. But as he was appeared in more movies, he got better and better. And I liked him more and more in the role.
I thought they did a great job of letting him, like it started out as just like, oh, he's just basically a conduit for the Hulk. Like basically, we just need kind of a stand-in. Right, exactly. Yeah. And as he kind of moved along, you got more and more of him on screen. I thought, man, that now you're starting. I've always been a Mark Ruffalo fan. I don't know if you guys have ever seen what's the name of that movie?
No,
I'll think of it here in a minute. Is him and Robert Downey Jr. basically was in it. It was the one about the California murderer, and I can't remember what the name of it is. Anyway, it's a great movie. I can't remember the name of it offhand. But he had played like a detective, and I thought, man, Mark Ruffalo's a really good actor. So when he was casted, I was like, oh, he's going to be really good. Actor. Yeah, but he's also replaced Ed Norton. And I didn't see that whole movie, but apparently everybody really loved as Bruce Banner. And so
I love Ed Norton.
So it was kind of a tough guy to replace, and I thought he did brilliant. I mean, just like you, Daniel, I was kind of like, I don't know about that, but I'll give him a shot. Zodiac, that's it. That's a great movie. Anybody's never seen that. Yeah. So,
I was a big Ed Norton fan, and then when they casted Mark Ruffalo, I was like, huh. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know how it was
I
gonna
mean,
go, but
especially when you've got like Chris Evans and Hemsworth, and these guys are just like completely jacked. I mean, like physical specimens, and then you've got like Mark Ruffalo, who's not a bad looking guy, obviously, but he's not like he's not he's not this super buff guy like we've been seeing. So
Yeah.
Well, let's move into
So
why
one
we've
more
all.
question on
Oh
casting.
yeah, go ahead.
Which one was a more perfect choice? RDJ as Tony Stark, or Paul Rudd as Scott Lang?
can I say Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange?
I think
No.
that was pretty good.
I
Between
mean,
the two,
great, but
let me say this about Scott Lang. I'm not very familiar with Scott Lang in the comics. Like when I started reading, Hank Pym was still there. Scott Lang was here or there, but he ended up dying in the comics at some point when I first started reading.
Spoiler,
I didn't tell you when. So I don't know how Scott Lang was. I always thought that Ant-Man was kind of like, okay, well, we can't get Spider-Man, so we got to make a character like Peter Parker. And I think they kind of put that on Scott Lang, which I was okay with that because I actually really like Paul Rudd, the ageless wonder, as I like to say. I think that he's done a great job. But the more is especially with in you see a lot of it in this movie when you start seeing him cracking jokes at like inopportune times. He uses a sense of humor when he's worried about something. His sense of humor comes out. So I always equate him to. Like, I know I always say I never got an older Peter Parker, but I kind of did with Ant-Man. It just wasn't in a Spider-Man uniform, and his name was Scott Lang. And so I think he made that character his own, and they kind of was thought, we'll never get Spider-Man, so we really need this character. And I think he did. I would love to see Paul Rudd as Peter Parker, but I think that he did a great job, kind of making that character his own, kind of.
Yeah, and I don't actually know much about Scott Lang either. As I've already said, I don't really have any comic book background, but I just feel like he's perfect for what they use that character for.
Yeah, just a bit. I don't want to get too far in the woods, but Scott Lang, he's kind of a combination of both Peter Parker, and then there was another Ant-Man that was basically a thief that came after Scott Lang. So they took kind of both of those guys and kind of put them together and said, okay, this is Scott Lang in the movies. So it's really not even. I think Scott Lang was a completely different guy in terms of his character, but they did a good job. I'm not going to argue. All right, so let's move on to why we're here, why we have convened here today to talk about 10 years of build, a heck of an ending to Infinity War to really kind of give us like, we just kind of come back tomorrow and see the rest of it, Phil, please, because that ending in Infinity War, you can't kind of talk about Endgame without kind of mentioning how that ending was just incredible. I keep saying the word incredible because that's the only word that comes to mind when I kind of say when I talk about Endgame and Infinity War. So, man, I'll tell you what, I didn't with Endgame. I didn't expect it to start like it did because it kind of started pretty quickly in terms of that. What did you guys think about how it started and then how it kind of transitioned into the real story that we was kind of getting after that first, 15, 20 minutes, I guess?
I thought I kind of really liked. Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, thanks. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, I thought it was a brilliant start, and I thought it was almost cathartic, for us, to go in right away. They're not waiting. They're going after Thanos, and then they take him out. Like, I mean, was it in the first 20 minutes of the movie that Thanos dies?
Yeah.
So I thought it was extremely surprising for me. I'm sure it was for you all too, but it was also semi-cathartic, because we got this moment that we should have, like, we felt like we needed, you needed to see. And then at that point, I had this kind of sense of, oh gosh, what now? What happens now? And so I really felt like once that happened, I had no idea where we were going. I was completely like, okay, I'm just along for the ride at this point. Like, I don't know what's happening.
But just to go back to the very, very beginning, like it's almost like a cold open. You think you're getting another preview. You don't get the I mean, did they even do like the Disney logo and stuff? Or just, I mean, it just felt like it just started.
I think I think
Here
went.
we
It did
are.
just start because I remember it went from that last preview, and all of a sudden it was like Hawkeye showing his daughter how to shoot an arrow, and everybody was like, "Oh, is it ready?"
And to me, even that was just such a perfect opening. Not that we needed reminded to what happened at the end of Infinity War, because obviously that's all we've been talking about for a year, but just a reminder of these people lost a lot. These, this was a very, very bad thing that happened, and kind of set the tone for what Daniel just talked about, where they're like, all right, we're going after Thanos right now. We know where he is. He's alone. We can go get him. But just kind of set the tone for the first hour of the movie, or 45 minutes, whatever it was, of everything's bad, everything's depressed, everything is, we lost and we know it,
Yep.
Kind of, it was a good reminder, since it had been a year since we had seen the snap.
That was a great reminder. Going in, I didn't know it was part of the movie. Like I said, I thought it was. I was like, oh, this is just another. How strange with him being shooting an arrow with his daughter, and thought it was just another preview. And then, like, no, this is part of the movie. But yeah, I thought that the opening was great. And then I thought we was just gonna be introduced right then and there to another bad guy. Like, I was like, really, this soon? Like, we're not set up for the rest of it. But yeah, I was interested to see how they brought him back.
Yeah, it was especially for someone like Hawkeye, that it kind of sets the tone for this movie, that at least part of it's going to be super, super heavy, and if not all of it, really. And I thought they did a pretty good job of kind of offsetting that with some humor, because I don't know, because Infinity War, I mean, it just felt heavy all the way through the movie. Like, there were some funny parts in it, but you could tell that it was like, holy crap, I think this is we're going to lose here. Like, the good guys are going to lose. I guess it would be equated to, like, you always say the Empire Strikes Back. That was their Empire Strikes Back type of moment. In this movie, I thought did a really good job of, even though with all the loss and the dread, and like the first, especially, I mean, the scene starts with, like, Hawkeye losing his family, and then they go cut off Thanos' head, and it's just a very dark time. Like, they're trying to figure out what to do, and then in the very next scene, to kind of move on, is 5 years later, and everything's so dark and gray. Like, he did a really good job of really kind of mixing in the colors, and I don't mean to get too artsy, but in movies, colors means a lot, and it just, everything is just kind of gray and dirty, and it's just it just kind of gives you that sense of dread that you
City
really need.
feels, in disrepair, because the Mets
exactly.
are gone.
Yeah, and just a side note, and our buddy Green will hate this, but when they did the flyby of City Field, it was empty, and I looked over at Andrew. I was like, "Isn't that stadium always like that?" Like, I'm not really for sure which game. That was for you, Reed. But yeah, so I mean, they did a really good job of starting off really quickly and already taking out a plot point that's like, okay, we're not going to find Thanos. Thanos is already, it's done. It's permanent, at least as of right now. We're going to take that completely off the board. Now here's the real story. And I thought the time jump was used perfectly to really set up the rest of the story.
And that was so shocking to me. I mean, I was absolutely shocked that we weren't going to get like this perfect conclusion almost. Everybody's going to be brought back right away and at the same time period. I mean, like I said, that whole first 30 minutes was basically just take everything you thought this movie was going to be and throw it out. And now we're going to tell you what we want you to be.
But almost like they just almost said, take everything you think a Marvel movie is and throw it out, because usually it's happy-go-lucky, very colorful, and the first 30 minutes was just like not that at all.
Yeah,
like especially that opening scene. Everybody always asking me, where was Hawkeye, all this, but that opening scene captures just the mood perfectly, the mood of how you felt leaving the theater last time. And then coming into this one, like, it captured that mood. Like, you felt that exact same way at the beginning of this movie.
Like, I felt like it was like I'd never left the theater. The way that they cut it, like the sudden start of it, and then it goes right over. It's like, it's been how many days? It almost feels like it was almost
like they filmed it all together.
all together. And if they ever made, like, if you ever watched it, I'm sure somebody will do this. They'll take and just splice it in, and it'll seem like a big 5-hour movie, you know, and it'd be perfectly fine. I thought they did a really good job of just picking it up right where we left off.
I'm sure there'd be a director's cut out there with the whole thing.
Oh, I'm sure somebody will do that. If not, you know, Disney. I was joking with Andrew that Hollywood hasn't really taken like really long movies and cut them down, and this will be them and Lord of the Rings. You'll see like mini Blu-rays. Like, you watch Lord of the Rings, here's like an hour and a half. It's just like a master trim. This will be one of them thrown in there. So as we kind of move on, so 5 years later, you know, we kind of pick up. I want to go like do a film for, you know, like a scene for scene kind of telling here, but you kind of see how everybody's kind of dealing with it in terms of this. You know, Steve's kind of doing a self-help group, you know, trying to get over that in terms of like a recovery group. You see Black Widow kind of still trying to be an Avenger, and you see her kind of communicating with everybody. Somebody brought up that earthquake underneath Wakanda, and the first thing I thought was Atlantis, and this article was like, could it be hinting at Namor? I was like, well, could be, and Wakanda and Atlantis does not get along because Namor's a jerk. And so hopefully maybe that's a plot point for future movies. But she's kind of monitoring everything and doing everything. Tony's living out in the woods with his daughter and Pepper, you know, and my wife Shauna made a bunch of good points in this movie. One of these is like Tony kind of removes himself from the city, so he's not seeing that every day, and he's he got away from it because maybe he couldn't deal with seeing it every day, while the other guys are kind of seeing it every day. Hawkeye is out, you know, murdering mobsters because he feels like, why did they survive, and his family got dusted. So it's you know, Bruce Banner, we'll talk about Hulk in a minute because he's a completely different change there. And then we'll talk about Ant-Man. But, you know, those guys are, you know, I thought they did a really good job of kind of putting them, kind of showing us where they were at in a very short period of time. Like, it wasn't like a big, long thing. It was like, boom, 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 here's the core. You know, how did you guys feel like they did introducing the Avengers in that 5 year later kind of push and kind of setting the scene for kind of what they've been through? Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, yeah, I think the one that really kind of drives home that they lost and there were consequences to it. Well, Hawkeye very much so, but we don't see a lot of what he does. We just hear about it. Is Thor.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We see the consequences. You know, he's a drunk that plays video games and yells at 13-year-old kids named Master 69 on. I think that was Xbox. I don't remember, but
it looked like a PlayStation controller. It had that stupid light on the front of it.
I don't remember. I couldn't remember. I missed that detail. But anyway, whatever it was, we see the consequence because he's hidden away in a way that he's, you know, kind of let himself go, and we see him in the movie as a result be less powerful. Now, some of that's a plot device because if he's as powerful as he was at the end of Infinity War, like we talked about, Aaron, it's kind of like, oh, the game's over.
Yeah.
Thor just kind of does what he needs to do. So to see that arc and to see those consequences of what Thanos did and how it affected him, you know, like you said, Tony Stark has kind of recovered in a way, or at least hidden away from it, managed to find a way to ignore it. Bruce Banner, kind of the same thing. You know, he's become Smart Hulk and has kind of found a way to be at peace with the world as it is, while others are trying to, Black Widow is trying to do what she was trying to do, which is kind of, you know, lead a team that helps deal with the aftermath, the chaos that was born out of the aftermath. I don't know. It was really cool just to see all those different kind of the different ways people responded, the different ways they were dealing with their new status quo, and again that there were real consequences to what happened, and that it wasn't just some kind of, you know, half-baked or half-thought-out idea. Like, everybody was responding differently, and everybody felt it in different ways.
I think the two funny stories about that Thor scene. One of them is I read on Polygon that they did an article, "What happens with the MCU now?" At the very end, it was like, and "Are we still playing Fortnite in 2023?" Because they played Fortnite in that scene, and I just kind of rolled my eyes because it was definitely pretty funny. The other thing was my wife turned to me when Thor turned around and you saw his big beer belly, and she said, "Look, honey, you have a body like Thor now." And I was, and so I said, "Well, it's not. Hey, you marry Thor now, so it's good." I just thought it was that Thor scene was pretty funny. But Joe, what did you think about how they kind of set up every character, kind of set them up where they kind of did a backstory on where they've been and kind of dealing stuff.
I love the way they set it up. I think with Tony, I think it was Iron Man 3 that he had like the post traumatic syndrome from what happened in Avengers.
Yes.
I think that's yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I think they kind of played off of that a little bit, where he just kind of completely just removed himself from everything. Um, and then I like the way that they still made Steve like a leader, kind of, trying to help people out. But I think the Thor, I think that would be a great sitcom. Him and a couple of the other two characters. Name I can't think of their names off the top of my head, but just like a buddy sitcom, like a rom com type of thing. But um, but I think the one that impressed me the most is the way that they done like the whole leading up to Smart Hulk. Because you knew something was gonna happen, you just didn't know what, because Hulk wasn't coming out. Hulk was mad that they took him off his planet, and didn't want to do anything. Like it was like almost um, um, like a toddler Hulk almost moment in Infinity War, and then it led right up to the perfect timing for Smart Hulk. Like I really think this was the perfect timing for it.
I kind of geeked out with Smart Hulk a little bit.
Yes.
Daniel, what do you think about where they kind of set everybody up? I don't think we've heard your opinion on that yet.
I think I think the best the best reveal for me was Tony. I mean, I can't remember exactly how it went. Maybe you can help me remember. But he was out there looking for something. He took the mask. Maybe. Well, I can't remember how he introduced his daughter.
His daughter was in the.
She had been
he went to
camping
look
out
for his
that
daughter.
night.
Yeah. So we didn't quite know where he was going or where he was heading to. I mean, I almost thought maybe he's looking for, his AI or something like that, or machine. But to see her pop out, that really hit home for me. That like, wow, like this has been 5 years. There's been a significant change in these characters' lives, and more so. And I guess for me, Tony was the biggest change. I mean, Thor, was funny, but I think it was more done for this is hilarious. What's happened to Thor and all that, and both Captain America and Black Widow were kind of about where you'd expect them to be. But it's really for me, what really drove home that this is a completely different time, and people had completely different priorities. Tony's daughter. That was a huge.
Yeah, I think we neglected to say that
And
Tony
speaking of
and
perfect casting choices, man, that little girl was adorable. That's all.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. One of the things we forgot to talk about was that Tony was saved by Captain Marvel. I think we kind of all thought that what was going to happen. Right when his ship was about to, him and Nebula was saved right when their ship was about to pretty much run out of oxygen. And then him and Cap had a little bit of obviously a fight where Tony kind of blamed Cap for not being around and how he should have let him put a wall around the earth and minus all the freedoms. He didn't care. He was trying to protect everything. So they had a little bit of an argument still stemming from Civil War because in Infinity War they were still separate. They had not come together, and Tony didn't call Cap. It was Bruce that called Cap. So that relationship was still very frosty, even when he kind of meets Tony to kind of bring him in. We finally kind of get some kind of interaction between them because they haven't had an interaction since Civil War. No, I mean they haven't talked since Civil War, and so it was kind of cool to kind of see that kind of play out exactly like you would expect with Tony really kind of giving Steve down the road, even though he almost kind of returned back to selfish Tony a little bit.
He did.
In that scene because Tony made a lot of mistakes there, and he just thought Cap would go along. and he kind of blamed Cap for things that was kind of Tony's fault in that sense. And so it was one of those times, just like, man, it's one of those times I really hate Iron Man, because he just was kind of talking out of his head a little bit. But we neglected to see that's kind of where Tony and Steve's at. Hence why kind of Tony's separated from everybody. He's just done with it.
Yeah, Tony, he did go back to like the first Iron Man movie type of thing, where it was just a big ego, not what we, I guess, grew accustomed to as the character grew on screen. But yeah, he kind of did go back. I think that what they done with Thor was good too, because leading up, Thor was kind of egotistical as well, and then Thor Ragnarok hits, and you see he loses a lot. Lost his dad, lost Asgard, and then Infinity War, he was just pissed pretty much that all that stuff happened. And this time I think everything just kind of hit him. Like 5 years later, there's nothing he can do to change what he didn't do.
I mean, he barely saved like what was left of Asgard. I mean, he made like Valkyrie, kind of makes a point. I think it was Valkyrie that said it, that he lost all of his family, he lost half of Asgard, and he barely saved what was there. And so you kind of sympathize with Thor a little bit, because he did go from way up here to, I mean, he hit rock bottom. I mean, I think out of all the characters, maybe except Clint, obviously, he pretty much lost everything. Like, he had nothing left. And so I thought that. I know there's a lot of people online that kind of gave that crap, but I mean, I kind of liked it. It kind of showed that, as far as the most powerful Avenger, at least at that point, that even he was susceptible to being like, hey man, I messed up. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stay and play video games all day. And so he responded just like any other person that would be, kind of depressed over missing an opportunity or losing a family member over that. So I thought it was, a lot of people kind of threw some mud at that, but I thought it was very, I don't know, it's funny, but it was almost sombering. Like when he mentioned Thanos, he said, "You do not mention that name in this house," and how like his whole demeanor changed when Bruce mentioned
it was almost like he regretted doing what he done in the first 20 minutes, chopping Thanos' head off to that point. So.
Because he even says later on in the movie when we'll get there, but he's talking to his mom when they go back in time, and he was like, his head was over there, his body was over there. What did it matter? I was too late. I was too late again. And so it didn't save anybody. And so I think everybody is carrying this tremendous weight on their shoulders, and it's just, they did a great job of kind of setting that up with that first 25, 30 minutes of the movie. Let's talk about Smart Hulk for a second. I think that's the most natural way that you could take that character after everything that happened. And I kind of geeked out a little bit on that because Peter David, which is, probably the greatest Hulk writer ever, really kind of saved the character from just being a monster. He did a lot of cool things with the Hulk. He turned him into, he turned him gray and did Joe Fixit, where he was kind of like a gangster type of Hulk, but he was smaller. And then he did Smart Hulk, and that's where Peter David's run kind of took off. I think he wrote that book for years, like it was a long time, and set up this great story for Hulk, and really kind of the number one Hulk writer that when people think about Hulk, they think about Peter David. And so to see Smart Hulk, I thought, man, like that's a great evolution of the character, and I never thought I'd see it, but there's Smart Hulk on the screen, so I was really kind of geeking out about that a little bit. Andrew, what did you think about Smart Hulk and kind of where they brought Hulk up at that point?
I just really love because I can't speak to the comics and stuff, so I'm just going to share what I thought was a nice laugh that they played. Was, Hulk is obviously easily recognizable. He's the only 8 foot tall, 800-pound green person in the world. So they're eating. He's got this huge pile of eggs and all this breakfast and stuff, and he's trying to get Cap and Ant-Man and ScarJo to eat. And these kids walk up and are like, "Hulk, can we get a picture?" And then Scott Lang is like, "You guys want one with me too?" I cracked up at that. And then you see this one kid, and you can tell they were improvising that, but that one kid is like literally shaking his head, "No, we don't want a picture with you." And Paul Rudd sees that, and he's like, "No, literally, this kid is saying, no, I don't want a picture with him." I just thought that was great.
And I think that was like the first time that they did, and then there was some humor leading up to that. You know, Cap and Black Widow, Natasha had that peanut butter jelly thing when he comes in there all optimistic and stuff, where he's talking about whales being in the Hudson and stuff, and she's like, if you don't shut up, you won't get a peanut butter sandwich in your face. So you could tell that they was kind of sprinkled through, but that was the kind of the first, because that came before Thor, right? Or came after Thor?
Yes.
Okay, it came before Thor. So that was the first time that you actually saw some humor, and it was perfectly placed. Like, well, here we are. Exactly. And so, and after they went to saw Tony Stark, in terms of that. So you're setting this up, it's not looking good, and all of a sudden you see Smart Hulk just chewing down on eggs and pancakes and everything else. And it's just, I mean, it's perfectly timed to get a little bit of laugh and get a little bit of that gloominess kind of off the screen a little bit.
I seeing Smart Hulk, and then also before that, Thor Ragnarok, seeing Planet Hulk was like the two things that I wanted the most on, besides World Breaker Hulk. I don't know if we'll ever get it on screen, but I think I reached over the chair and started punching an arm, and Smart Hulk came on the screen.
Daniel, what do you think about Thor and Hulk? I don't think we heard either one of those from you. What do you think about kind of their characterization at this point?
Whose characterization was it? I'm sorry.
Thor and Hulk.
I'll talk about Hulk because I'm like Andrew. I didn't have a comic book background to know that Smart Hulk was even a thing. But I will say that for me it was a necessary, it was a great character development moment because, Hulk is kind of boring. I mean, frankly, he's got his moments where he can be really funny and he can be funny, but he's also very frustrating and very boring because he's uncontrollable and can't engage with the rest of the Avengers the way they can engage with each other. So they actually develop that character and just say, okay, this is Mark Ruffalo, this is Bruce Banner right here, and they're the same person. I thought it was perfect time for it. It worked well. I'm glad they did it because that was a necessary development for the character.
Yeah, I really liked it, and I thought they did a really good job. And as you kind of go out, as the movie kind of moves along, Shauna my wife had a kick out of him reenacting in that first Avengers movie, throwing stuff around, and just not enjoying it at all. And I thought that was really, and even being embarrassed when he jumped on that car like 12,000 times and squished that guy, and his face is just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that type of thing. So he just got better as the movie went along. Like, it was just the more it moved along, the better Hulk, or Peter, in that case Banner, got better. So it was really cool. So as we kind of move along,
they also kind of had to do that. If this is, I'm clear to talk about spoiler, right?
Oh yeah, we already set that up way before. Yeah.
So they also kind of had to have him as Smart Hulk so that he could snap. Otherwise, I don't know. Right. I don't think you could get other Hulk to do that. So. Right.
So he had to be right. He had to be smart. Like,
he had to be Bruce.
Kind of yeah. Yeah. So as we kind of move on, the plot is that Scott Lang ends up showing up. He ends up, of course, he was stuck in the quantum realm, which we come to find out, it was 5 years, but really 5 hours to him. And that was kind of a funny story. Funny when he jumps out of the van, is like trying to get that guy to get him, let him out with the help sign and stuff. And he has no clue what's went on. He's basically almost like Cap was, kind of like a man out of time for a little bit. Like, he just didn't know what was going on. Thought his daughter was dead. He saw his name on the memorial. His daughter was okay, which was a great scene. But then he shows up at Avengers headquarters, and they're like, is this like a recording? And no, this is now. And so they bring him in, and he's talking about, which the whole time thing is hilarious, like with the Back to the Future references and all the movies that him in War Machine is referencing. You could tell these are, and that's what is great about the Marvel Universe, even in the comics, they've really done a really good job on the film. You got, big green Hulks and Norse gods running around, and these immortal super soldiers running around, a guy in armor, super smart. And then you got guys like Rhodey and Scott Lang, who are just kind of regular guys. Like, they just kind of fell into this thing, and they kind of bring this perspective of, if it was me
Rhodey
and you,
especially.
Rhodey is hilarious.
But he especially just kind of fell into it by, like, his only thing is that he contributes is that he was friends with Tony.
That's it. Yeah, his friends Tony got into armor, right? And Tony kind of gave him some armor. So it was just having those two guys to kind of kind of if we were all sitting in a room in this situation, we'd all look at each other and say the exact same thing. Like it was just great. So, but they end up, and we kind of talked about this a little bit amongst ourselves about how time would kind of come into this. And what do you guys think about how they kind of explained everything in terms of, hey, let's go back in time to all these things and get the stones before Thanos even knew that he was looking for the stones. What did you guys think about that plot point? I thought they did it as well as you possibly could. That's the best time travel stuff I've seen since Back to the Future, to be quite honest. Daniel, what did you think about? That's really when the plot kind of ramps up a little bit. And you're like, okay, well let's see how they kind of deal with this. What do you think about when kind of the big, well, what has Scott Lang said, a time heist, when that became the biggest part of the story?
Well, I thought it was kind of pretty ridiculous. I mean, honestly, like the entire time travel thing. I mean, I didn't think about it too hard. I didn't try to like work it out in my head. I mean, there are all these time paradoxes and all this that could have happened, and people going back and doing this, changing things. I just did not care, because I was just like, you know what? I don't care how they explain it. I don't care if it makes sense at all. This is just fun, so I'm just gonna enjoy. I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy what I'm watching. So I thought it was really entertaining. But if I watched it again and try to think, you want, the way we think about it makes sense, But I didn't really come up with any character like this song.
Hey, Dan, you got really quiet there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you got really quiet though.
Oh, okay. No, I think what I was saying is that like I just didn't care, like if it made sense or not, because it was so entertaining. Like the whole time travel plot was so entertaining. I just did not care if it made sense or not. It was a lot of fun.
Well, Joe, what do you think about overall the time thing? Like I say, it's kind of hard to pull off any good time stories. What do you think about when he's like, oh, okay, they're going to do this now?
I really thought they pulled it off really well, actually. I can't remember the little thing that Tony Stark done. I can't remember
the Chrono
Yeah,
Watch.
I can't remember what the name of that thing is, but that's a legit thing. It's the only shape that you can literally start at one point and take it around and still have a straight line and cover every piece around it. So I thought that was cool. But I thought
Joe
it was
bringing
cool,
the science.
I thought it was a cool explanation too that I can't think of her name off the top of my head.
Which the ancient one?
The ancient one.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool explanation what she'd said. Up at this time she was really, really hesitant to give him the time stone. And then when he said, well, this is what Doctor Strange had seen, and she automatically knew like she would have made a mistake if she didn't give it to him. And then, she kind of explained it kind of well up until that point. And then when that was said, then she didn't care.
She even said that Strange was the best of us, so she knew that of all the ancient ones to do this, Strange must have knew something was up in trying to do it. Andrew, what do you think about the time heist?
So I'm mostly like Daniel. I was like, I don't actually care if they came across a couple paradoxes, which they did, but I was just along for the ride. It was a very cool way to be able to call back to a few different places in these last 11 years of movies, and seeing the New York fight again was cool. Seeing the elevator scene with Cap where he says "Hail Hydra," that was just wicked. There were some pretty cool things about it. One of the things that does kind of bother me a little bit, or I guess maybe not bothers me, but I'm curious to see if we get some kind of payoff on it in future movies, is that the ancient one, which you guys mentioned, kind of explained it pretty well. But she said that the Infinity Stones controlled the flow of time, and now the MCU exists in a universe that does not have Infinity Stones to control the flow of time. And I just don't really know I don't know. It seems like a pretty big deal to me. So I don't know if they'll pay that off in some way or if they just kind of missed it. But
yeah, I didn't think about that in terms because because Thanos destroys it to kind of lock in his decision, to or lock in the snap, I should say.
yeah.
So yeah, I didn't really think about that in terms of now there is no Infinity Stones in that timeline. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
So but that's more interesting to me than that's like a plot hole.
Right.
But
Could be something to build off of in the future too.
yeah,
So
right. And I kind of think they will. That maybe something that we see in Doctor Strange 2 when that comes out, because their whole big thing is that they have this time stone now to defend against however they phrase that, and now they don't have it because it's destroyed. So what are they going to do? I mean, obviously they have Doctor Strange, who's pretty good at this stuff, but seems like they still wanted the time stone to help defend against it. So that's interesting. But anyway, more to the time travel stuff. I thought it was about as clean as you're going to get a time travel movie. Again, there's a couple of big paradoxes. The biggest problem to me was how did Nebula and Thanos, past Thanos, the good Nebula, or the see, this is hard. The imposter Nebula and the good Thanos and his whole ship all get back to the main timeline because they only had enough Pym particles for one or the other, unless they went to get Natasha's on Vormir, which they knew she was on Vormir because they had access to good Nebula's memories. And so maybe we just have to assume that they went to Vormir, got the Pym particles off her body, and came back. I don't know.
Well, you also got to assume that maybe they. I mean, this is what makes the more Earth such a even Thanos kind of said it's such a stubborn planet because it doesn't have everything that the other all the other universe has. You got to think Thanos has some pretty good tech on there. And so it could be, I mean, I just thought that maybe they created their own Pym particles. It could have been very easy for them to reproduce that considering what kind of tech that they had. So I just kind of took it as,
I'm not super worried about it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not staying up at night.
I didn't think about it in the movie. I was just like, holy crap. But now that you mention it, I can see that.
I don't think they needed Pym particles, though.
Why?
Because I just think with his tech and everything, she hacked into that time machine.
Yeah, but she brought the Pym particles to him.
That's right. She did. You're right. She put her fingers in there to do a thing, didn't she? That's right. So maybe she did. Again, I didn't have a big problem with it anyway, but that was kind of the biggest issue I saw with the time travel plot.
We're talking about somebody that would replace the part of his daughter every time she lost her sister with a robotic part. So
she's like the ultimate hacker at that point.
Yeah.
She's like
walking. And of course, that is the other problem is that good Nebula's hand was all jacked up, and Rhodey doesn't bother to look and see that the Nebula that comes back with them doesn't have it. But again, they were pretty busy. I'm not too worried about that either. So again, my opinion on the time travel thing is that as far as time travel movies go, it was about as clean a time travel plot as you see. Like, I mean.
Well,
they explained it pretty well. They set it up, that changing the past doesn't change the future. So, it introduces cool questions about how they're going to handle time travel. Like, was time travel, when they travel back, were they creating new universes? Did those universes already exist and they were just visiting them? How does all that work? And they may never get into that because that's pretty high-minded for MCU stuff, which they try to and do a pretty good job of keeping pretty grounded for what the content is.
Plus, to go back to what you said about her hand, I think they set it up kind of perfectly because when they came back, they was all focused on Natasha not coming back.
Right. So they're all preoccupied.
So they're all preoccupied. They're not going to notice he's not going to notice something as simple as her hand being well.
Right. And she was wearing a jacket, which I don't think she was before, but they did some things to kind of hide it. Her hand was jacked up too, so they could have noticed, but you're right. It's not something I'm like, oh, they should have noticed that.
I just thought it was so cool for them to go back and just touch on little things that they did, like the scene where she's all taken apart because the evil Nebula had something go on with her eye And there's like, and then they took it apart. You know, you go to that
I thought
scene
they
and
explained that perfectly, like they were on
yes,
the network. I thought, oh my, that's genius.
well,
Yeah.
that not just that, but you go that I think it was the first Guardians when they actually have her taken apart, and you're like, man, why did they have her taken apart for? And then it just goes for loop. Like I just thought some of those things that they done were just so cool.
So many cool callbacks. I
Yeah.
listed a few others because I wanted to talk about that. The two big ones, of course, are Stark's line right before he snaps, saying "I am Iron Man again," which of course is one of the last things he says at the end of Iron Man 1. And then a little more subtle one that I thought was really cool was a callback to Avengers 1 when Cap picks up the hammer, which obviously we'll talk about. But he picks up the hammer and then he's fighting with the shield and the hammer, and he throws the shield behind Thanos and then throws the hammer at the shield and creates that sonic boom to knock him off balance. That was one of my favorite things because I always liked that in Avengers 1 when they fought, and you kind of get this unstoppable object or immovable object, unstoppable force, and you get that sonic boom then. I just thought that was wicked.
I thought it was pretty cool that you got Cap versus Cap, which was
I can do this all day.
I can do. I know. But yeah, it works out pretty well there. Daniel, what kind of, since we're talking about moments here in terms of that, especially during this time where they're kind of traveling back through time, what was some of your favorite moments that they kind of touched on, or some of the scenes during that time of the I guess the heist?
During that part of the movie, I love that they went back to the Battle of New York. That was really cool. I love the Captain America versus Captain America fight. I love the. I know we're not cursing on the podcast, but I love where they were having the talk about Captain America's butt. You know, I mean that's just I mean it was so hilarious. And it was perfect play. To be such a somber movie, that was just such a hilarious part of the whole movie. I read, and it didn't really stick out to me, but I really enjoyed once I read the beginning of it, and they were talking about the throwback in Thor, where someone made the comment that Renee Russo was better developed in like 10 minutes of this movie than she was in like 2 Thor movies, and I thought that was pretty accurate. They did a good job of it.
Who was?
But I think
Renee Russo,
Thor's mom. Yeah.
Thor's mom,
Yeah.
She had like 2 lines in like the whole Thor plot. Yeah.
Let's see, but I mean, it was cool. But I think I guess what I really liked about that entire part, and can you guys still hear me good?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Was just how much comedy they got out of that section, because we were so weighted down by what we knew was going to happen on Vormir. But to have that, the Battle of New York, where they had multiple hilarious scenes with Hulk going down the steps, and getting mad about going down the stairs, the Hell Hydra, the elevator pullback. They just did a good job with that entire.
I think the humor and some of the complaints about Guardians, especially Guardians 2 in particular, and even some of Ragnarok, was not all the humor hit. Like it was some of it seemed a little bit forced here or there. I thought they did a really good job.
Was Avengers 2.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, and so I thought their timing for their humor stuff was right on. There's not a funny part that I thought, wow, that really kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, like I did in Avengers 2, or even especially Guardians. I love Guardians 2, but they forced a lot of their humor in that, especially the Drax stuff. I thought they kind of forced it a little bit more, and it kind of came out of place. Yeah. And even in Ragnarok, there was some part, but not as much as Guardians 2. I thought they did a really good job of really pacing that out, and every joke kind of hit. Like even the part where they're about to they're trying to decide who's going to snap, and and Thor's like, what do you think is inside of me right now? And Rhodey is like, Cheese Whiz, and and it's just and it shouldn't work, but it did. Like it worked really well. And so I thought their humor was just spot on. And I thought having Rocket still be alive was a little bit of an odd choice, but he had some great scenes, just his one-liners and him talking to Thor and just being like deadpanning everything. I I thought that he was a really good conduit of that. To really kind of bring in. Still remember that we're dealing with a heavy thing, but we got a talking raccoon in the corner type of thing.
Yeah.
I thought that really
Yeah.
kind of said, okay, we're still having fun here, even though every half the
Mhm.
population is dead. So I thought
But
they did
in
a really
some
good
of
job
the
with the humor.
in some of the parts, Rocket was more of the adult in the situation than most of the
This
other
is
ones
true.
were.
Yep.
So, but
Well,
like him
that's
and
because
Thor,
he was
he was the
terribly
adult.
poor. Yeah.
Him and Thor, he was the adult in that whole situation.
Oh, that was another
Yeah.
good callback is when he gets the reality stone out of Jane, which was another nice callback. The guards are chasing him through the palace, and they say, "Get that rabbit!"
I thought one of the things that they did I thought was really smart during this time is, at this point, Captain Marvel is probably the strongest person on the Avengers. And me and Andrew kind of had this discussion a little bit where a lot of times it's hard, calling back to Civil War. They took Thor and Hulk off the board. They did that in the comics too. Thor and Hulk was out for the real Civil War, and not the real, I say real Civil War, but the original comic book series. And I thought they did a really good job of giving Captain Marvel a legit reason not to be on Earth. Like when Rocket kind of
Yeah.
pokes fun at her and is like, "Oh, hey, what are you gonna do? Get another haircut or whatever?" And she's like, "Well, you're not. The Earth doesn't have Avengers here. They don't have every like you guys do. It's happened all over the universe, and it's my job to fix everything." I thought they did a really good job of kind of taking her out because it could have been very easy for her to kind of come on and solve all this, right? Because
Yeah.
she's so powerful. I thought they did a really good job of kind of like, hey, she's still around, kind of dealing with stuff, but the Avengers are really going to have to deal with Earth. Like she's going to obviously come up a little bit later. But we need to kind of take her. We need to take that pawn off the table and kind of figure out the story from there.
Yeah, you can send her to 2012 to get all three of those stones on her own.
In a heartbeat, right? Yeah.
If she's around.
And that was my biggest fear going into this movie was, of course, I haven't seen Captain Marvel yet. I'm going to soon. My biggest fear going into this movie was that Captain Marvel would come in and save the day. And I just didn't think that would be appropriate because this is an Avengers movie and we don't know who she is. I thought they used her perfectly. I agree with you, Aaron. I mean, they used her exactly like they needed to. They set up, like you said, they took her off the board when they needed to for legitimate reason. But I thought it was handled good though.
Yeah, I think that's DC, and not to bring DC into this, but DC has a Superman problem. Like they had to kill Superman in the second. In his second movie, to kind of take him, be like, oh, Superman can solve everything. And I thought when Captain Marvel came along, I even told Shauna this before. I was like, yeah, Captain Marvel probably come along and beat Thanos, which she was a big part of that, but she didn't take it and just have a big slugfest with Thanos. I did think we didn't touch on the 1970s part, which I thought was a really cool kind of callback to both Cap and Tony. Cap going back and seeing Peggy, which was, that was awesome in terms of that. And even then, the way she, the long, kind of the he kind of waited there for a while. You kind of knew something was going to be up at the end of the movie where he's figured out a way back to Peggy. And I thought that was a really cool. We talk about callbacks. That was like one of the best callbacks in the whole movie. And then, Tony having that discussion with his dad, I thought was really cool. And everybody kind of commenting about him being a hippie in terms of that. I thought that was really funny. When they asked him if it was a Bee Gees beard or somebody else's beard, I don't know who that other guy was.
Mongo Jerry in the summertime, but the
gotcha. And she was like, definitely Mongo Jerry's. So it was a very, very funny kind of sequence there. But I thought they really handled even the alternate universe stuff. I was talking to Shauna a little bit afterwards. I was like, there's this really obscure Marvel story called The League of Losers. And it's kind of the same thing. This guy comes from the future, but it's opposite. He gets all their powers and all their weaknesses, and he pretty much destroys, he pretty much kills all the superheroes. And there's these like 6 superheroes that wasn't even credited in history because they were so insignificant. So they go in time to save their friends, and they do, but then they're told by Reed Richards, which is a brain inside a robot thing body, which was pretty cool, that they just created like an alternate timeline where this didn't happen, that their friends are all still dead in that timeline, but now they've created one where they're all still alive where this didn't happen type of thing. And I thought as soon as she split that off, I was like, I'm so glad that they pulled that, because that's how the Marvel Universe works in the comics. You don't necessarily change, the past or the future don't change. It just kind of creates something new. And so I thought they did a really good job branching that off, kind of going back to that. Because as soon as they did that, I was like, oh, just like in the League of Losers story, which probably had nothing to do with the movie, but it was just a little bit of a callback to one of my favorite stories that I kind of remember. But I thought they did the whole time travel thing. I thought they did. I agree, Andrew. I think we all kind of agree they did a heck of a job on that.
And as far as the 70s go, I think that and that was just an incredibly smart way to be able to tie Cap and Iron Man together get them in a place that we haven't seen before, to have conversations that we haven't seen but can certainly believe and appreciate are happening. Which Cap doesn't really get that, but he's reminded of Peggy, sees her again, and that's kind of enough for the end part. But it kind of that sequence, I think, kind of establishes what we talked about Infinity War when we talked about Infinity War, we talked about how they made it a Thanos movie because their cast was so big they kind of had to focus on something else. And I think this one ended up being a Cap and Iron Man movie in much the same way. And that 70s, or that scene from the 70s, that sequence kind of really drives that home. And I'm stealing that from a friend, so I can't take full credit for it. But I think that really kind of ends up in the end, kind of tells that, pays that off as well, as far as, Iron Man, Tony Stark dying, and then Cap staying in the past and growing old with Peggy. But I think that was a smart choice because, number one, we kind of knew those two guys, that RDJ and Chris Evans, weren't going to be doing this anymore because they were ready to move on to other things. Just because due to the nature of contracts and knowing how many movies they have left. But it was a smart decision. It really worked, and that sequence in the 70s, I think, was a big reason why.
Yeah, it really kind of all tied it together. You knew at some point they was going to have a problem. We at least hope you had a problem. We thought it was going to be maybe Thor and the Ancient One having an issue or something like that, but I thought that kind of tied that up really nicely to have that one spot to really kind of get those two together. Like we said, haven't talked much in quite a few years, and to kind of force them to have interaction and kind of be Tony and Steve instead of Captain America and Iron Man.
And I love the fact that it was Tony Stark that messed everything up and they had to fix it.
Right, exactly. I thought that was really ironic as well. Right. And it wasn't even Ant-Man that screwed it up. Like, he gives Ant-Man heck all the way through that, and it was Tony Stark that screwed it up. So it was pretty funny. So once they get all the Infinity Stone, I thought, we talked about the Hulk. He's really the only one, like Andrew said. And you had to have a Hulk that was compliant and reasonable to be able to do that.
And could undo what Thanos did.
Right, exactly. Right. That's probably the most important part. So I thought that, that whole scene was done really well. There's a little bit of humor in there. Everybody kind of wanted to do it. But, even Bruce Banner was like, hey, most of this power is gamma. So it was almost like I was created to do this type of thing. So I thought it was a really cool Hulk moment. Where we always had some really good Hulk moments, but we never had that's kind of a great Bruce Banner moment. Like, he was just like, hey, I understand I'm the only one that has to do that.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Joe.
It was a good Bruce Banner Hulk moment. Like, both of them together. The whole time that we've known the Hulk in the cinematic universe, they've always been button heads. But in this movie, that right there just kind of sealed that they're working together. Like,
right.
So
it went from fear to conflict to them working together to do a thing that if they don't do, then everybody dies.
Well, there's always a question whether or not the Hulk is a hero.
Second time.
Right. There's always a question that whether the Hulk is a hero or not. He's very uncontrollable. He's a monster. He doesn't care really with all, with everything. He doesn't really care what he does, doesn't think about what he does. So it's almost like an evolution of him. Hey, the Hulk is a hero, and that was his hero moment. I think everybody got a lot of hero moments in this, but I thought that was a really cool moment for Hulk to kind of finally become a hero, not just a big green hulking mess that people are kind of scared of, that don't really know about. He went from a monster to a hero, so I thought that was really a cool scene. So let's kind of, because this movie picks up really quick, especially the last hour. I was kind of what me and Joe, I saw it on Thursday with Andrew, like I said, and Joe on Saturday matinee, and I kept kind of glancing at my watch to kind of give me a timeline of where this. I think when Thanos, we talked about Thanos warping back and his whole army and armada's there or whatever. And it goes quickly into be like, okay, everything worked. Had a great scene where, Clint's wife is calling him on his phone, which was great, kind of sealed his story. Oh, wait, we didn't even talk about something super important. We glanced over it. Black Widow dies, Natasha dies. And I thought that was, I want to get your guys' opinion on it because I really like the scene overall, and kind of where Natasha has come as a character. I thought was really good. But Joe, what do you think about the death scene for Black Widow?
I think I don't even know where to start because
I know where to start. Her hair was so bad she deserved to die. That's where I could. No, go ahead.
Because Clint felt like he should do it because of all the bad or the so-called bad that he had done since the snap. That there was no going back. But I just thought it was I think it was kind of just almost heart-aching to a point to where Clint had to make that decision that he didn't even let her do it. Like he was full on gonna do it. And then it was just, I don't even know how to put it into words.
Well, he jumped way too soon. Like, like I mean, I wouldn't put Clint on the track and field team. He just jumped way too soon. And he would have done a really good job if he would have waited to jump. But just to if we're throwing technicality,
it's like a guy that's going to
not a very good broad
free
jump
throw line, but he jumps from like halfway between the 3-point line. Yeah,
that's it. He wins the dunk and he hits the further rim. That's exactly what Clint did. Daniel, what do you think about her death scene overall?
I thought it was more effective than I thought it would be. But what I didn't quite understand is did anyone know that was going to happen in the movie? I mean, I guess no one knew exactly what happened on Vormir. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I guess Nebula knew that Gamora died.
Let's back up. So anyone in the movie knew, like the characters themselves? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a weird thing because Nebula did talk about that. And, Ant-Man in one of his Peter Parker moments was like, not me or not it to go to that planet. And so I was kind of, when they got there, that was a little bit of a continuity, I guess, weird error. It's not a big deal, but they almost like forgot that was the case. Like they were shocked that they had one of them had to die. So go ahead.
No, see, the thing was, no, hold on. Nebula didn't know that he killed Gamora to get the Soul Stone. She just thought that he killed Gamora.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
she didn't know that it required a sacrifice.
Yeah, and the whole Ant-Man thing wasn't because they knew it. It was because when they described the planet and they described like death was on that planet.
Oh, okay, right. That makes more sense then. Okay,
yeah. So that makes sense to me as well. But those were the only two characters that could have went, right? I mean, those are the only two characters with the established relationship that could have made that work. But I thought it was more effective than I thought it would be because neither of those characters I had like a huge love affair with. I mean, I like them both, but the fact, I mean, the way they did it was very, very well done, where they were basically fighting to kill themselves before the other could.
Mm-hmm.
And it became very heartbreaking for me to watch, even though like I wasn't as emotionally invested in any characters to say I was Captain America. It really, really drew me in.
Especially if you know the backstory, where Clint pretty much was sent to kill Black Widow, and then he ended up not killing her because he saw what she could become.
I'm kind of thinking that's what her movie's going to be about.
Yeah, Budapest. Yeah, I think we'll see Budapest. I think Joe talked to me. I think Joe talked about that when we got in the car. He was like, "I bet we'll see Budapest."
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's what I'm hoping for, anyway.
So one of the things I want to touch on,
be a future movie,
right? Well, no, not now. Daniel touched on.
Let's bring that up because Star-Lord is looking for Gamora, which to me makes me think at the very end of the movie, Star-Lord is searching for Gamora, which makes me think that they're going to be able to find her, which makes me think, why couldn't they undo Black Widow too?
Yeah, that's all.
I don't think that was it though. I don't think that was it. I think what happened was the 2014 Gamora. That's who didn't come back to the ship, and that's who they were looking for. That's
Yeah.
the way I remember.
Are you sure she didn't get snapped though by Tony? They didn't show her getting
I'm pretty
snapped, but where would she
No,
go?
I think
Where
she.
could she have gone?
I don't
Well,
know.
that's
but
true.
I
She
think
wasn't
I
on.
think
She
that's what
wasn't
they-
on the ship. I didn't think about that, Daniel. Yeah, she wasn't on the ship. No, you're right. Well, I
So
didn't think about
I don't
that.
think they're looking for. I think what they are trying to establish is that if you died getting the Soul Stone, you're not coming back.
Right.
So that's why. So Black Widow cannot come back, and that time version of Gamora cannot come back. That's kind of the way
Right. And that's kind of how I took it too. But then I thought because he was looking for Gamora anyway, that they were setting up. That's what Guardians 3 is going to be about, and that they're going to figure out a way to do it.
I took it as the new or the old version of Gamora that's still alive.
She may still be out there, but I don't know where she could have gone. How could she have escaped? There was you know what I mean? Like she couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Where could she have gone? There's no ships there. There's no I don't know, but I get what you're saying, and I mostly agree with you. They really worked hard to establish if you die to become or to be conferred the Soul Stone, you're dead.
No, you see Adam Warlock do a strange things in the comics. So they set him up in the second Guardians. So I don't know.
That's a good point too.
Boy, I totally forgot about Warlock being in the second Guardians there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on something Daniel said about Hawkeye and Black Widow, Clint Natasha. I think that the Russos did such a good job in this movie to establish those two characters that they couldn't do in 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that he did such a good job to see how they did such a good job of how Natasha was feeling in terms of she lost her only family. When they're talking about, the Red Skull and whether he's lying to him, he said, Clint was like, because he knew your daddy's name. And she's like, I didn't even know my daddy's name, type of thing. Clint being, a family man that lost his family, and it really, for a while there was a Hawkeye kind of, you talk about Tony and Steve kind of turning into Tony and Steve movie. There's a while there where it was a Black Widow Clint movie. And
they had their moments, certainly.
They had their moments, and they had more moments in this movie than they had the whole time during the rest of the movie. So I thought they did a really good job of, and they did it in Infinity War too. And it amazed me now, and they did it even better there. Well, they took these groups of characters and put them together and told separate stories into the whole. They all kind of played into it, but they took these characters and kind of gave them moments throughout that didn't get it. And I thought that they did a really good job with Natasha and Clint, really building their character and who they've become since that battle in New York. That they've actually became a character. They're just not mercenaries. They're just not military guys. People. They're just not the regular guys on the Avengers. They became more of a character, and that story was really one of my favorite parts. I mean, that whole scene between those two was super effective and did a really good job of really making Natasha. Because I told Joe, Natasha's, Clint was talking about his hands not being clean. Natasha's hands aren't clean either. And you got to think that, she lives with that guilt too. And so I thought, and she knew that Clint, she talked about hope earlier in the movie, that Clint was going to get his hope back. But her only hope was to do something to give Clint that and to give the world that and to be this hero that she always wanted to be. And this was her shot at doing it. That was her hope for her. And she knew Clint would have his hope when his family returned. So I thought it was really good, kind of back and forth, and just a really, really kind of good moment of character building for those guys. So let's move on. After that big, scene, of course, Clint comes back. Everybody's like, "Where's Natasha?" And that's where that discussion comes from. And I love how Clint talks to Thor. I thought that was really cool. He was just like, go talk to the red faced wizard or whatever he called him up there, and you talk to him and see if it's real. And so I thought that was a pretty good little moment for Clint. But then it really picks up. So they do the snap. Everything's come back. Scott Lang walks out, and the next thing you know, I mean, it's just blowing up everything. Thanos comes across. They blow up Avengers Mansion or Avengers headquarters, and they do it in such a way where it is done. Like, it is just dust really quickly. in terms of that attack, to the point where I was a little bit shocked, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like that was a lot quick. What'd you guys think about how quick it picked up from that point on, Daniel? Or Daniel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I was shocked too when basically they just they just unloaded on Avengers headquarters, and I thought we were going to lose characters right there. I mean,
Right.
I thought Clint was dead right there, and maybe someone else.
He
Well,
should have been.
I thought Ant-Man was dead.
Oh,
Like the way he
yeah,
blew him out, I thought he was dead.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Clint
so I mean,
Clint definitely
I was
should have been dead. Ant-Man, you could say maybe he shrunk quick enough that it wasn't a problem for him, but Clint had
so
no
I was
armor, no
looking relieved.
nothing, no special abilities, and somehow he lived. Like,
It's that new haircut, man.
sure, yeah, uh, nice hair.
Because he's Hawkeye.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. He definitely should have been dead, but I'm not mad about it. Again, like it's a superhero movie. I don't really get too bent out of shape over that stuff. Go ahead, Daniel. I'm sorry.
Oh, did we lose Daniel?
Sounds like it.
Okay, Dave, if you hear us, we can't hear you. Go ahead, Andrew. What do you think about that? How fast it kind of picked up?
Well, I'm glad it did, because as much as we're talking geeking out a little bit over the first 2 hours, it was a hair too slow.
It was.
I think it all paid off, and it was all fine. I appreciate all the things that they did of, like we've already talked about, setting us up back up in that world, letting us understand the consequences, letting us kind of see the gravity of what's happened, blah, 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 blah. And then obviously they had to go back and set all this back up. They didn't want to waste time. You can't throw away Natasha's death. You have to do it right. And they did. But it was time for it to get ramped up. And I'm glad there wasn't this whole big bunch of soliloquy from Thanos about this and that, blah, blah, blah. And we don't need a speech. We got all that in the last movie. It was a Thanos movie. So I very much appreciated how quickly it just went to, okay, here comes Thor and Cap and Tony, and we're going to fight this dude. And he's just sitting there waiting. It's a total BA move. Like, good job, dude.
And even the way he
was-
says,
yeah,
like
that-
when he tells Nebula to go get the stone, she's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" He's like, "I'm just going to sit here and wait."
Yeah, that
and
was
it's just like,
so
ooh.
effective. That was really effective.
I loved it. It was awesome. And then you see Thor reach both hands out, and you're like, "Oh God, this is going to be so cool!" And then here comes Stormbreaker, and Mjolnir at the same time, and then his beard gets braided, and he looks a little good for the first
still
time.
have a little bit, a little bit of gut, but still a little bit slim.
He looks good for the first time in the movie, and you're like, "All right, it's on. Here we go." And it was on, and there we went. It was awesome.
Joe, what'd you think? Because like I said, I talked about it picked up really quick. Was you surprised at how? And come before I ask you that, go back on Andrew. I told Sean, I was like, it started out a little bit slow for my feel. I thought Infinity War had a little bit better pace starting out, but especially the time stuff, I thought that they was a tad bit slow. But then I thought, well, they're ramping us up. Something's going to have to happen, and they're really kind of slowing.
And I don't know what they could have cut to speed it up.
That's what I told Sean.
I was like, Scott, who's been gone for 5 years, go back to Cassie. That's what he's going to do first. You do have to establish Tony, all the things we talked about. And I think all that stuff had to be in there. I really don't think they wasted any time.
Yeah, I thought they did whoever edited that movie and cut that, I'm sure the Russos had a lot to do with it, but whoever really kind of sat down and did the editing of that movie, I think deserves an Oscar to fit all that in there. The editing was absolutely what Superman Batman was the bad editing. Endgame was to editing 101 masterclass, whatever 2000 masterclass that should have been. Dan, you kind of got cut off a little bit. We couldn't hear you there. What did you think about it's okay. What did you think about the pickup? Or how fast it picked up? Yeah.
So what I was saying was that I was really happy that no one died in that scene, because I really thought that it was over for some of them. But like you guys said, it was time. Like it was time, and to have there were so many moments just crammed in. I don't know how long it was. It may have been an hour or something, but there were so many moments that were just like, I will remember forever, like as long as I'm alive. Like Thanos sitting down and said, "I'm going to wait." That was so cool. And then Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man coming out to meet him. It was just all these moments, chill and do. And I'm never forget like how I felt in the theater watching the moment. It was time to bring
It's
it up.
cutting out for me. Is he cutting out for you guys?
Yeah, he's cutting out just a little bit, Daniel.
Sorry. Okay.
So,
How about now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so I mean, it was just amazing how well it came together in that last fight.
I think that battle scene, if I looked at the clock right, it was almost right at an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it cut in maybe we went to the 2 o'clock showing. I think it started at 5 after was whenever they kind of at 4 o'clock. It was right when Thor and Iron Man then walked out and Cap walked out of the building. So it was almost right at an hour. I say probably a little bit more, but it was almost right at an hour. Joe, what'd you think about the setup for that final battle?
I thought, like you said, it did pick up really quick because it went from them arguing on who's going to do the snap or who's going to put the glove on and do the snap to reverse it. And then you hear the snap and you get Clint's phone ringing. And then all of a sudden it's just like explosions everywhere. Like, holy crap, like it came from nowhere. Like you knew something was going to happen because the bad nebula messed with the machine, but you didn't know. I just thought it was going to be like Thanos and, the couple of his little goons would come with him, like the Black Hand would come with him. But it was like his whole fleet was there.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it startled me because I really didn't expect it to happen that
no,
quick.
I didn't. No. I think I literally jumped in my seat when like the missiles were like coming down. So it was impressive how quick it picked up.
So let's talk about this final battle because I think this is one of the best, I think this is one of the best scenes in movie history. I don't care what anybody says. I'll put it up against any scene in movie history. I think this was just so well done. I thought the Infinity War battle was me and Sean was talking about where our kind of battle scene comes. Everything comes from Lord of the Rings. Like those battle sets and everything that they did in Lord of the Rings was absolutely amazing. I think she said she put it either at the top or right under the Return of the King battle at the end. Somewhere 1A, 1B, somewhere in that thing. It's definitely up there with that battle, which I think is super cinematic. I think this is the best one. And just to give everybody those moments, I'm sure we're going to talk about these moments here, but even from the get-go where you have Marvel's version of the Trinity. You got Cap walking out in the middle, you got Iron Man on his left, you got Thor on his right. They're going to go after it. And they lead the charge first, and then just kind of picks it up from there. And I don't know what kind of theater that you guys want. I mean, Andrew, on Friday night, we had an awesome theater that really kind of hooped and hollered. And it was crazy. And just to see, we'll talk about like what, and I'm just going to say when Cap, there's two great Cap moments in this, and Andrew touched on one of them. I told if you read the comics, Thor has always said that Cap was the only mortal he ever followed, and Cap had picked up. There's only two people I know that picked up on air in terms, as far as I know, and I'm sure there's more, but the two that I remember vividly was a DC, a Justice League, Avengers crossover where Superman picked it up, and then also Cap has picked it up. And you kind of tease it in the second one where they're all trying to, they're all drinking, have a good time after, the Ultron stuff. And he goes to try to pick up the hammer and everybody's trying, and Cap picks it up and it's moving, and Thor's kind of really worried that he's going to pick up the camera or the hammer, and he puts it back down. And you're thinking, and as soon as I was like, oh man, like if they don't pay off that scene somewhere down the line, I'll be super, super disappointed. And as soon as that hammer started moving, my eyes kind of widened, and I was like, I don't think that's going to Thor. And as soon as it went by him, like I was up in my seat, and Shauna just kind of looked at me. And as soon as that hammer hit, like I just couldn't help myself. I was just like, yeah, go get him. It was just incredible. And the whole theater erupts. I mean, it was one of the best, not only movie moments, but just theater moments I've ever had. I really didn't expect.
And let me just say that Aaron like almost jumped out of his seat.
I almost jumped out of my seat. I was so excited.
Like he did a double fist pump. It was the whole big thing. It was awesome.
I geeked out hard for that one.
Can I jump in real quick on the end?
Yep.
So when we did our Endgame podcast, I don't know if y'all remember, but I said that I was disappointed that Captain America didn't get his hero moment. Like Thor got his hero moment where he comes in and has this awesome moment, but I was really disappointed disappointed that Captain America didn't get his hero moment. And I went into this movie and I was the same way. It's like if he
Lost him again.
Daniel there.
okay, so I'm here. So if he does not pick up his hammer, like I'm being walked out of the theater. So like it was the
You're getting a little bit soft again, man.
Quiet. Yeah.
it was the pinnacle of movie. He can pick up that hammer.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point he had to. Like, I would have been super disappointed. And then the other moment that kind of got me fist pumping was when and I didn't notice it the first time, and I watched it a second. I think because I was looking at Thanos' army, I didn't notice that when Thanos' army comes up, and he talks about he's going to rip it. He's going to rip this planet down to the last atom and really make everybody suffer because now it's personal because this planet's so aggravating to him. When Cap gets up after Thanos kind of beats up everybody, and he gets up and it's only him on one end of the ravine, and you've got Thanos' army on the other end. And I didn't notice that, but the second one I watched, I was like, "Holy crap!" Like I had totally either forgot that or didn't notice it. But what a scene where you have the one guy that the one soldier, the guy that always gets up, the guy that faced the biggest evil in real history when it comes to
Whose shield has just been broken in half.
His shield's just been broken in half. He's got nothing left, but he's the last line of defense between this and an invading Thanos army, and everybody turning to dust again. If he gets a hold of the gauntlet, and then you start hearing, Doctor Strange. You hear Falcon
Sam.
go, "Hey, Sam." Yeah, he goes, "Hey, Cap, you there? You there? Look to your left." And you see Black Panther
On your left.
Yeah, on your left,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's coming out, and then that scene where everybody's behind Cap, and Monair flies back in his hand, and he's like, "Avengers assemble," and everybody it gives me goosebumps.
I got chills again just now, just talking about it.
Yeah, it's incredible from the scene of Cap standing there by himself, Sam calling him on the comm, Monair hitting his hand again, and then Avengers assemble. I mean, it's just incredible. Just that whole scene.
When I heard on the left, because that's a throwback to Winter Soldier when Sam's running beside him or running up next to him and sit on his left. But man, it was so cool to see that dude when he catches that hammer. I was like, oh my god!
And I was sitting there the second time because I knew it was coming. I had a big smile on my face, but I didn't want to turn and kind of ruin it for Joe because I didn't want to be like, hey, watch this. And as soon as it happened, I started hitting his arm. Like, oh, look at that! Look at that! The second theater wasn't there was a bunch of little kids and stuff in there. It wasn't really as good as Friday, but I even still pump my arms, when he when he caught him on the air again. But man, what a thing! Just that whole scene is just incredible. But those two scenes are just all Cap, and I'm so glad that Daniel talked about maybe Cap not getting his moment in Infinity War, but I mean it was so many Cap moments.
He
just
got it in spades this time. Yeah,
most
definitely. He kind of got his butt handed to him in Infinity War.
He did.
Like Thor came out, and you got that scene where, Thor really had two scenes, like in Ragnarok, which is his own movie. He comes up and he's on the Bifrost Bridge and kicks butt, and then he comes down there in Infinity War and kicks butt, and then Iron Man had his moment on when he got the moon thrown at him. But Captain America really didn't have a moment in that whole movie up until when you hear Thanos come in Infinity War. And you think, well, it's going to be Cap and Thanos a fight, but then Thanos just hands Cap his butt. Like, and then this one, he finally got his moment.
And he's all dirty and grimy, like he looks like a soldier. He looks like he's been beat down. It's just everything in that scene is so awesome.
Well, even when he catches Mjolnir, or God, I can't even say it. Even when he catches the hammer, and beats Thanos down. Thanos catches him slipping just one time, and then he takes advantage of it and just beats the crap out of him again. But even after he's been beat down and he stands back up, and all you see, like you said, was Thanos' army and then him. Pretty much between him and the rest of civilization, it was just, you knew, like, I get goosebumps just talking about it because he was literally the last line of defense. He'd faced, like you said, faced the Nazis and everything, and he was up for another, he was on a die for his country like you were before.
Die for the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Andrew, what was? I know we talked about some of the big scenes. You could continue to talk about those if you like. I know I kind of geeked out on there, but what was some? There was a lot of battle in that, and there were some really cool kind of scenes in there. Was there anything minus the ones we talked about? Well, you can talk about that one too. Some of the ones that when they did the panning shots and some of the rest of that battle. What was some of the favorite parts of that?
So I've talked about the funny moments a lot for whatever reason tonight, but we talked a lot about the hammer. And there's that one moment where Cap and Thor are standing together, and they both stick their hand out, and Stormbreaker comes to Cap, and Mjolnir comes to Thor, and he's like, "No, switch. I get the big one. You take the little."
Yeah.
That cracked me up. It's almost the relay race to get the gauntlet to
That was good.
Scott's van. Actually, when Scott pushes the key fob to figure out where the man and that the song is La Cucaracha and he's Ant-Man is a nice little thing.
That's awesome.
Anyway, that whole thing with you get Spider-Man activating kill mode on the
cool.
ultimate suit or the iron suit rather. I got this. I don't got this. But you get so many cool different or so many different. It was a smart way of getting so many different people involved in that scene, which has obviously got so much going on in it. And weirdly enough, not very much Hulk going on in there. But he was probably pretty worn out because he had just snapped.
And his arm was like, burned to the bone or whatever.
And he had been holding that pretty much the whole building from squashing
this is true.
Rhodey and Rocket.
So it's justifiable. I'm not throwing any shade at the Hulk. He did good work in this movie. But anyway, just that whole relay to get the gauntlet to the van, and of course, eventually not getting it there, and what that set up, and that last little bit. I really also liked that they paid off the Doctor Strange scene, 14,065,000 or whatever it was, different scenarios, and then they get to the one and or to that very last moment where Tony makes his last stand against Thanos and swipes the stones off of the Iron Man gauntlet, and that was pretty cool too. So I mean, just that whole scene, start to finish, it's like it's cool thing after cool thing. You get the cool, they get all the female heroes together for like a fight when
that was
Captain
my
Marvel
favorite scenes.
That was cool too. Again, just the thing after thing after thing, little moment after little moment that we could dissect, and I'm sure we could try and piece it all together. We'd still forget stuff because they just packed so much into that. With if you consider how much time, because you're right, there was about an hour left when that started, but there's probably at least 20-25 minutes of end stuff. So it's like a 30-some minute scene. We wouldn't be able to remember all of it, but you get Giant Man again, which was cool.
Yep.
Thing after thing after thing after thing that
I think
was really fun.
I almost compare it to, I don't know if y'all have seen Ready Player One, but the last battle scene in that movie, there's so many Easter eggs that you can't really find all of them. Yeah. And just imagine all the Easter eggs in that scene alone.
So
like I read an art. Oh,
go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
I read an article on one. They said that the coolest part to them was it was really quick. Like I didn't even catch it, but I'll probably catch it now that I saw it. But Howard the Duck was there. He was standing behind a couple people, but he was there at the last battle.
Oh no! I gotta go back. Oh man, I gotta find that. I'll watch that frame by frame to see my boy Howard. So one of the things funniest thing that kind of popped in my mind was, way back, I don't even know what episode it was. We had that question: what team would you put together to save the universe or whatever? And for a split second, I thought, oh my God, Spider-Man is literally going to save the universe. that was my thought, and I was like, I can't wait to rub it in everybody's face that Spider-Man saved the universe. I thought that's a one thing.
I mean, Spider-Man would have been dead if it wasn't for his instant kill mode. Okay, I'll just put that out there.
but he
speaking
still
of-
knew how to do it.
Speaking of him, it's also worth noting that it was really cool payoff of him and Tony's relationship.
Yeah.
That Peter ends up being the kind of motivating factor, or the final
The main reason, really. Yeah.
The straw that breaks the camel's back for Tony's risking what he has with his current life, with Pepper, with Morgan, I think was the daughter's name. I thought that was a really nice payoff for a really well-developed relationship, because Tony had been so integral to the Spider-Man, to Homecoming, a little bit we saw in Civil War as well. That was another nice payoff.
One of the things you before Captain Marvel gets out, I just, for some reason, I think it was just a really funny interaction.
That was it. I was like, what's the other movie they've been in?
What's the other movie?
Yeah.
The one thing with Captain Marvel, when he's got the the Infinity Gauntlet, he's kind of holding it after the barrage, where she just kind of flies up. She goes, "Hi, my name's Peter Parker," and she's like, "Hi, Peter Parker. You got something for me?" It was just very kind of a just. I
actually don't like the way she plays Captain Marvel that much, but. Speaking of that was another thing I forgot. Maybe my very favorite thing that happens in the movie is Scarlet Witch beating the absolute dog crap out of Thanos. Just because I think maybe we talked about it. Maybe it was in another with someone else that I talked about it. But they've never really established how strong she is. I mean, she destroys an Infinity Stone, and that is a demonstration of her power. But people don't really understand how much power that took. So seeing her beat the ever-loving dog crap out of Thanos was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, Scarlet Witch in the comics is very, we kind of talked about this, not to get too deep in the woods, but I mean, her powers are so vast and powerful that, she changes reality. Like, that's what part of her powers are, that she can change reality. So much so that when her and Vision was together in the comics, they had kids, which is really weird because he's not even human. Come to find out, she's so powerful that she can make up her own kids, and everybody sees them as real kids. And so, I mean, her power is just much different than in the comics, but it was really cool to finally see a character that was, to this point, a little bit of a throwaway character, just someone that's there, really just, take it to Thanos, to the point where he's even, sacrificing his whole army just to stay alive. I think was such a cool scene.
And that gave him a nice way to establish that this Thanos that they're fighting isn't the same as the other one, because she says, "You took everything from me," and he's like, "I don't even know who you are." And then she says, "You will."
He found out real quick. So then we kind of move on after all.
Go ahead, Joe. You also see how Doctor Strange had his moment too, with the whole morphin, or not morphin, but open the portals for everybody.
Yeah, keeping that big thing of water away and stuff like that. He had moments too.
I really thought he was going to use that water in some way.
I thought he was too, but she
subsided.
kind of just chilled out there. One of the other cool moments, and we'll kind of move on after this, is when Peppa, or when I say Peppa because my kid watches Peppa the Pig all the time, so I say Peppa. Pepper and Tony got back to back and was using their armor, and all the the laser fins was out, stuff like that. I thought that was really kind of a cool scene. You got Bucky and Rocket, doing the shooting together, stuff like that. So there's a lot of really cool moments that I can't wait for the Blu-ray to come out. I joked with Daniel that before Andrew, before he got on, that I would buy a Blu-ray of just that 30-minute battle if they put it out on Blu-ray, just to have, because it was so amazing. So we kind of move on, and it's Tony and Thanos. Everybody's kind of there, and then that's when Strange kind of throws up that one, and Tony knows that this is it. He's got to make his last push because he knows this is the one. And you could tell that, in the way that he tackles Thanos, he's almost spent. Like, I just got to knock him off axis for a little bit so I can grab this thing. And just that whole end scene, it was kind of happening a little bit in slow motion. I thought they did a really good job. And of course, Andrew said, when he gets the gauntlet and it's in his armor, he says, "I am Iron Man," and then he wishes them out of existence,
which was pretty perfect, because Thanos had talked about how he hated how stubborn we were.
Yep.
And Iron is, a lot of times
he talks about how it's not personal, but now it is, because he's
well, and then Iron is often used to describe stubborn people.
This is true.
Yeah, I kind of like the double meaning there, on top of the callback to Iron Man 1.
So a couple things, and kind of wanted to talk about the death scene just a little bit. I'll kind of start because I'm not a big Tony Stark fan. Like, I'm more of a Cap guy. I kind of that's kind of who I kind of root for. And there was times when Tony just came off as just obviously a rich brat, and so his character had moments where I was like, oh yeah, that's the Tony that we want to see. But then then he yells at Cap for letting this tragedy happen when he was just as much a part of it as anybody else was. And so what I like about this death scene is, one, he wasn't killed by Thanos. Like, nobody took his life, but he did it. Like, he decided to make this sacrifice knowing that it would probably kill him. And he even says when they're trying to figure out the snap that, this would kill anyone. Like, nobody's going to survive this. We got to kind of decide who's going to go, because we can think about even before that whoever's made that snap wasn't going to be good for him. And so I like that they kind of let him go out as a hero in his own terms, instead of like Thanos, killing him or something like that, which would have been, I think, a waste. The other thing I really liked, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I cried near this last part. I think everybody kind of teared up at this point. But the reason that I kind of got emotional, and Andrew, if you don't already feel this way, as a dad, to see Tony Stark kind of, and he even says it when they go to meet with him, where he's like, my future or my second chance is here, and he's holding Morgan. And I thought that finally we saw a mature, unselfish Tony Stark. And as the movie kind of goes along, he still goes back to being a dad and a husband in this movie. Even when he wants to do this, he tells Cap, look, I want to bring everybody back, but I can't lose what I got. And he makes it a priority this whole movie. I thought he did. I thought it was a really good job of, he died, saving the world, but we got to see like the best Tony Stark at the end. Like, we got to see the best dad, the best husband, and what he had become in terms of that. And so I think that for me personally as a dad, like, that's what you want to be. Like, if, as soon as you become a dad, not to get too, serious with this podcast here, but as soon as you become a dad, the only hero that you feel like is to your family, to your wife and your daughter. That's the only people that you, that should take priority over everybody. And I thought it was a really cool character development of Tony, that we finally get this best Tony. Unfortunately, the best Tony is dead. Like, he sacrificed. That's what the best Tony does for the planet, but mostly for his family. And I thought this movie had that with Clint. I thought there was a lot of family elements to this movie, but I thought Tony did. I thought that scene was perfectly executed with the perfect Tony Stark, the best Tony Stark we could get. And it took him becoming the best Tony Stark by being a husband and a dad and experiencing that to really make that push to save the whole world. So I thought that was a really, really cool kind of bow in a movie that had a lot of family themes kind of going to it.
And I'm going to agree with you, Aaron. That really struck me. First off, the scene where he said, I'm willing to help, but I'm not going to lose what I got. So
right. That hit. Yeah.
And then the other part, yeah. And the other part that really stood out to me was when he was telling the Hulk what to do. He said, remember, just bring everybody back to today.
Right.
Don't, and I took that as don't erase the past, don't erase the last 5 years. It's too important. Only just bring everybody back now.
Yeah, and I don't think that was just for him. I kind of felt like that was because of the continuity that they were trying to maintain in terms of avoiding multiverses in the MCU.
And I completely agree with you, but I guess just for me, that's what stood out.
Yes. I agree.
I can agree that I think that's the reason why it was in there. But it stood out to me as being a key moment, because he was thinking about, I'm not losing again. It was kind of a callback to I'm not losing what I thought.
Absolutely.
And that, and I'm going to have to get off here, guys, in the next couple minutes. But the scene with the daughter, where he's sitting next to Happy, where she's sitting next to Happy, I think that's when I started tearing up. When they were talking about going to get cheeseburgers. It was just an incredible moment, and I'm right there with you, Aaron. I mean, the best version of Tony is what we got, and it was worth it. It was all worth it.
I mean, it took 10 years of movies to get there, but he got there,
And even at a hard part like that, when you go to the funeral scene, the opening shot is his thing he had in his chest that says, "This proved Tony Stark has a heart." Even then, it's still kind of, I chuckled, I kind of laughed at that, but God, that whole part was just kind of
the part
hard to watch.
The part where I really about lost it was when he's doing that hologram message and he said, "I love you 3000." I thought, oh my God, I can't,
Yeah.
I can't see it. Like, I can't, like,
Yeah.
waterworks are really about to start here.
Well, and let's say too, Aaron, because like you said, we had a great crowd, but we were sitting in front of a kid that had been a little bit unruly at moments. It wasn't that bad, and it's a loud movie, so it really, really wasn't that bad. But when he snaps and he goes, kind of crawls over and is about to die, even that kid shut up. Now, it was because he was crying.
He literally crawled into his mom's lap and was bawling.
He was dying.
I mean, just think about it though. That's these kids grow up on on Tony
absolutely.
Stark. Yeah, that's like they're Luke
and he's
Skywalker
dying.
to a point. Yeah,
Absolutely. But I was astounded might be too strong of a word, but I was just kind of blown away by how quiet it was. I saw it twice, and the first time it wasn't that quiet. But Aaron, I saw it on Thursday. I didn't tell you that. But anyway, that theater on Friday night was just great.
It was great.
And it was you could have heard a pin drop. There was not a soul making a sound in that whole place. And they just handled it so well. The funeral was really, really well done. Kind of the whole falling action, everything that happened after that. They let Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch have their moment together because they're two of the people that lost something that they couldn't get back.
Yep.
So that was really well done. It was all handled.
And the Peter Parker part of it too. I thought they was trying to catch fire twice, but it was really a good
moment,
a decent part. Yeah.
I just thought that. I mean, I can't think of the last movie that made me, laugh, cry, gasp, jump out of my seat. I mean, I can think of moments in separate movies that made me do one of those things or something like that, but I can't think of a movie. I'm really trying to think. I can't think of a movie that made me do all of that in one movie. Like, it's just an incredible accomplishment.
At multiple times too, like when Thor sees his mom again.
Yeah.
Like I got goosebumps in that one. Got a little bit emotional, but yeah, it was just that ending scene where everybody's kind of somber and they just kind of show everybody one last time. And the kid from the third Iron Man is there that helped Tony.
Well, I didn't see the third. I didn't see the third Iron Man, so I had no clue who that kid was.
Yeah, that kid. Yeah, that's the kid from the third Iron Man that helped Tony Stark out so much with his post-traumatic syndrome, stuff like that.
So, I was trying to figure out who that kid was. I only saw Iron Man 3 once because it sucked, but that's who that kid was. I couldn't figure out. I was like, who was that? Okay,
yeah, that's who.
I'm glad you said
that was.
So, kind of very quickly, I know it's been late, but I think I didn't read the article, but the Ringer put out, and I'm going to read it after this. But the Ringer put out an article that said that the Marvel universe is kind of in a state of questions, and it really hasn't been since probably maybe, I don't know, the Thor movie, right? As far as that, as early as that, especially Dark World in particular. But now there's a lot of questions about kind of where it goes. What do you think the next progression is? Obviously, they're probably going to build to some other big story. I think Secret War has been thrown around a lot. You've got the X-Men, you've got Fantastic Four now coming in. There's a lot of stories you can play there. The Avengers are gone. Like, the original Avengers are gone. Like, Thor's kind of still there, but he's kind of doing his own thing with the Guardians now. Cap is old, which we didn't even talk about. Him going back, putting all the Infinity Stones back, and then coming back as old Cap because he lived the full life. He married Peggy. He kind of got a happy ending that he needed. Sam's the new Captain America. So a lot of status quo changes, much like in the comics. It's very, very much like in the comics where you have these status quo changes. Andrew, what do you kind of think it goes? Like, I know we got other movies lined up and kind of how to, we know what movies are coming, but the original Avengers are gone. What do you think they kind of build around from there?
Well, so I think eventually we're going to get a Captain America movie with Sam because one of the big questions that I've had is how did Cap return the Soul Stone? Because
a
I
good
don't
question.
know.
We
Don't really know, and I'm assuming that we will probably get that answer somehow or another.
And the
at
shock
some
that the Red
point.
Skull was the guy there.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't. When they revealed that in Infinity War, we didn't really have a good reason for why he was there. So I'm theorizing, just personally theorizing, the whole reason they put him there is so that they could reintroduce him to the world, so that now that the Soul Stone doesn't need guarded in that world because it's gone, he's free to go do whatever he wants to do again. And now we can have a new Captain America movie with Red Skull as the enemy, with Sam as Captain America. That's something that I think would be cool, but obviously I don't know any of that. That's one of the questions. One of my questions for this movie is, so 5 years, or they unsnapped everyone that got snapped ago. Do they come back aged 5 years, or has everyone else aged 5 years and they come back as their 5 years previous old self? So like, Hawkeye's daughter sure didn't look like she'd gotten 5 years older in that time.
Right.
So now he's just an extra 5 years older. Like, Aaron, if you had gotten snapped and Joe didn't, now instead of you being 2 years old, I think that's how your age different. Now instead of being 2 years older than him, he's
4.
okay. Okay, so now he's 1 year older than you.
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't know if that's important, but it's kind of one of the weirder things.
I think the Peter Parker scene kind of brings that up, right? Because he technically should be out of high school.
He
at
goes
that
back
point.
to high school. You're right.
Yeah. So that brings up that question about what kind of time you're kind of in there.
But then his friend would have also have had to been snapped because his friend was the same age too.
I think that
I don't know how important that is to the larger universe, but it's just something I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I thought the same thing when last night when I had gotten home. I was like, why are they still in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he should technically be graduated by now.
Yeah.
And I think that's to set up, I guess, the next Spider-Man movie. I guess I don't know, but I thought I read the next Spider-Man movie was before all this happened.
That's after.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's just
it is after.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's technically a Phase 3 movie, but it's after Endgame. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look it up, but there's an article on here that I'll look it up. But sometime I swear maybe I read it wrong, but I swear that's what I thought I read. I think it's just a cool. I mean, Andrew, you don't read the comics, but you kind of get a crash course in comics here. I mean, it's constantly changing things, trying to make things different, taking characters away, bringing characters in, putting them in spots you don't really expect them in. A lot of the loopholes is there as well with the age and stuff like that. We call a lot of questions. I just think they got a lot of toys to play with, and I think we're going to see. I mean, they're definitely not going to stop at this point, but we've got the X-Men, Fantastic Four. We've got so much more to play with, and the Marvel Universe hasn't even scratched. I mean, they're doing an Eternals movie.
Backlog of source material.
Yes, most definitely, and they're not afraid to. The one thing I like about Marvel, they're not afraid to go obscure. Like one of the lists they're doing apparently an Eternals movie, that's as obscure as you can humanly get. Like nobody knows what an Eternal is. And so I think that with them being not scared to kind of introduce these other properties and create these other worlds and really introduce a lot of people to these stories, I think the sky's, still the limit. And I don't think this is the last time we see Cap. I think Cap comes in again at some point. But I think that it's the perfect ending to what they started. I thought that it was just an incredible ending, and I couldn't have, in my wildest dreams, figured it would be this good. I just thought it was a perfect period to this chapter.
Yeah,
I think it sets up an incredible Fantastic Four role now, because I think that's gonna come in. Reed Richards is gonna take place of Tony Stark.
Smart.
Yeah. And just a charismatic, just a leader too, because I mean he had a huge in the comics. He had a huge role in the Infinity War and the battle in New York when they was doing it. I mean, he and Stark put Hulk on the Quinjet, to set course to the planet. So I think it does come. I think it's a huge, and we might actually get the Fantastic Four movie that we've actually always wanted.
Well, I think they set up the Fantastic Four where you take the Avengers off the plate. I think the Fantastic Four is the first family of Marvel. Like they are the one
Mhm.
that kicked it all off. So I think it's unique that they got them back. They could really set the Fantastic Four up as like the middle of this universe. Like they could be the Avengers in terms of this and kind of be where everything kind of starts and where the big stuff happens in their movies. And I think that would be awesome. I think they don't get the Fantastic Four is really overshadowed by the Avengers, the X-Men, Spider-Man, some of the ones that have became even Wolverine just by himself. I think it'd be really cool that the Avengers are off the table, and then we've got the Fantastic Four is that core team that the universe kind of revolves around. I think that would be a really, really cool pivot for him.
Yeah, and he's off. They're on the table. Thanos is off the table now, so now Doom is going to
Oh,
be. I
man, I
mean,
can't
of
wait.
course, Doom is Marvel's big bad guy anyway. So, but that keeps him from getting overshadowed by Thanos.
I still think they can revisit Ultron in some way and actually do it well.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think so. I think that's their one skip.
That'll be
I think
down
that's
the
their one
road.
really big miss. Yeah.
They need to go a ways before they try that again. But
I think it sets up the perfect thing too because Hank Pym's back, and if you introduce Reed Richards, I mean the whole thing with Ultron was to guard the what was it, super cube? Is that what they called it? The prison, the max prison to hold all the bad guys in.
Well, Ultron wasn't made for that, but I know what you're
But
saying.
that's what he ended up coming, yeah. So, and then you also set up, instead of them being called miracles now, you also set up the mutants in the world too,
right?
Because that's what Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver is called in Age of Ultron, the miracles.
Here's
So,
initially, I won't get in the woods. When Rocket talks about that Earth had a big power cosmic surge.
Something happened to your mic.
Yeah, you're really muffled now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So when Rocket talks about how when the snap happened, that you got a big surge of cosmic power, would be really interesting if they introduced the mutants that way.
Yeah.
Like they don't have to do that; they can just say they're there. But all of a sudden that you start having these kids born that are superheroes because of that big cosmic surge, and so it'd be a really cool way to kind of or if they're going to do it in a Humans movie, they could do it like that too. Like they could use that power back. Oh, hey, when this happened, certain people got bestowed with these powers. Now they're in Humans, or something like that. So that's a little bit of a throwaway stuff, but Marvel's been known to use power surges to really kind of create other things, and so it's kind of throwing that out there. I thought
that's a nice thought. Yeah, and they could seamlessly work that in that way.
Yeah, especially the Inhumans.
Just hope we get Fing Fang Foom.
Oh God!
Let's hope we get Fing Fang Foom. Yep.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys staying up with us. Okay, Joe. What?
Also, you were talking about the end credit scene being just like I guess like a 12-shot salute or whatever it's called. But that thing I was telling you about is called the Morbius. I think Morbius ribbon. But that has something to do with it because it all comes back around.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay.
So the last thing you hear is the first thing that we really hear, or that sets the Marvel universe in action, is Iron Man building his iron suit.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah.
All right, man. So thanks, Daniel and Andrew. They jumped off there. We stayed up really late talking about an awesome movie, so we're going to go. I don't know when we'll have another podcast. I ain't going to promise anything. We're all pretty busy, but I'm sure we'll come back together and talk about something at some point. But thank you guys for listening. Subscribe to us. We'll put another episode out at some point. But Joe, thanks for hanging out. Andrew and Daniel, thanks for hanging out. When Jared sees it, we'll have a little bit of a mini discussion on that once he sees it. But yeah, so for SPOILERcast for the Avengers Endgame, I'm Aaron. You got Joe. For Daniel and Andrew and Jared, we'll see you later.